Welcome to TAMA Talks, brought to you by the Torrance Art Museum Advocates. I'm Janine Madden, current TAMA president, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Today's talk will feature work currently on view as part of Window, an ongoing public art project in collaboration between Torrance Art Museum and Discover Torrance. Window is a rotating solo presentation of artwork curated by the museum staff and displayed in the storefront window of Discover Torrance, the official visitors bureau for the City of Torrance in California. Discover Torrance is located on the main level of the Amo Fashion Center, one of the largest shopping centers in the Western United States, affording a large segment of the community, as well as many visitors to the city, a chance to engage with artwork in a non-institutional setting. The current window artist is Cat Chiu Phillips, a Southern California-based Manila-born artist and educator. Phillips received her MFA in New Genre from San Francisco Art Institute and has been an educator in the public schools for over 20 years, as well as an adjunct professor. Her artwork practice is focused on public art installations that draw attention to environmental issues. Phillips repurposes plastic waste into whimsical works of art that are at the same time playful and alarming. Her piece, Plastic, is made from plarn, plastic yarn composed of discarded plastic grocery bags cut into strips and then looped and used like yarn. It's a playful view on repurposing rubbish, yet also offers a perspective on the function and inevitability of waste materials in the community. This is an ideal situation since it allows consumers to gain insight in repurposing and the efficacies of garbage. For this particular project, the discarded plastic used is from dry cleaner bags. Cat is the 10th artist selected for the Window program. Her work will be on display through the months of May and June, and it's been up through all of April. You are invited to stop by Discover Torrance to learn more about Cat and her work at the Amo Fashion Center on the main level, entrance 6 near Lucille's.
And actually, here's an image of myself installing just a very like a
Fantastic.
hyperlapse of the work out here. I'll play it again. So, and it's really interesting just to show you here that in public spaces, and you see in the background there with a gentleman sitting on
Right.
it's like the interaction and engagement of folks who come in while you're installing. And I think that's part of like the charm of working in public art, just this curiosity from people around you while you're installing the work. I think that that's just part of it. So and I want to just, I know you did a brief introduction of myself, but public art, also kind of moving more towards community collaborative work, and but still having this base of traditional methods, that's grounded in traditional methods, but also in this contemporary setting. Like, how do you engage the public in terms of, like, how do you relate to them? Like using very traditional handicraft methods in today's world, right? That's kind of like my overall question, and in terms of my practice, and also like these sustainable art practices and plastic, and also e-waste, which I will actually have images for you here. And I feel like today I just wanted to unpack like the journey of what just the journey my last 10 years, like my
Yes,
artistic.
absolutely. And again, I think that the piece, it will be interesting to learn the piece that you have in the window right now is so appropriate for a window. Is it a site specific installation?
Yes, exactly. It's site specific.
Okay.
So, and like I said, the not only my experience as a public school educator, specifically, like I was taught public school for 20 years, middle school. I feel like that's
And you
training.
get a badge of honor for that.
Middle school, and then 4 years in high school. And now I am San Diego's Unified Visual Art Resource Specialist. And then also I am in teacher education as an adjunct professor. So, like just all this like experience coming in, and then also kind of like, in this part of the journey, and then also in installation. And like I said, I wanted to just take you just on my history on
Yes,
how this kind of came about, um,
absolutely.
so not only like in installation, but also in public art, um, and where I am now, you know. So,
Perfect.
my background is actually in printmaking, but not only using found materials in printmaking, but also like, as you can see here, it's called kulang pa, which is like in Filipino or Tagalog, it means not enough. And not only it's screen printed, but also having this embroidered map of the Philippines in here, and also using found objects. So that's just the work that I was doing prior to doing all this installation and public art, and really an exploration of like identity, in terms of like, as a woman, as a also an Asian American, and also as an immigrant, right? That was just like what I was doing prior to all the work, right? In my undergrad and also in grad school, and also not only exploring identity, but using found objects and deconstructing found objects. So here's another piece. It's called bolsa, which is pockets. So what I would do is actually deconstruct these counterfeit designer bags. So,
Mhm,
and then
mhm.
put them together almost like a quilt, and then, just positioning them with like something in this case, with these are like military uniforms, a Marine Corps uniform. So just kind of like, how do these things relate, and also just understanding the historical and then the societal like implications between like these juxtapositions. So these were like smaller scale that what I was working on, um and then also there was a call for art. So when I moved here to San Diego, there was a call for art at the San Diego airport. So prior to this, actually, I was living in Pasadena. So and then when I moved to San Diego, there was a call of art for at the San Diego airport, and I submitted these. It's a portfolio. I did a series of 50 of these smaller pieces that was also embroidery, watercolor, and found objects. And like I said, they were tiny. They were like 5 inches by 5 inches.
Oh my. Okay, okay.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
basically, I'm saying this because of this opportunity, the San Diego airport at that time, they saw just my potential. They're like, hey, we have this space. And oh my goodness, I can't even remember. I want to say like the space, the window, and this is in Terminal 2.
Okay.
They're about, I want to say 10 by 20 feet.
Mm.
So, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, you saw what I submitted, right? Like really tiny work. They're 5 inches by 5 inches. And then, so what I did was and this was, the exhibit was about Balboa Park. And so I made these works. There were watercolor and also embroidery. And then I used the quilting machine to create like these details of Balboa Park.
Oh,
Um,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
so each one is actually these scenes, these were these historical structures that are still here in Balboa Park in San Diego.
Yeah.
Um, and just these details like honoring these, I believe this was a centennial celebration during that time. And And like I said, I wanted to talk about that journey only because these public art opportunities, especially here at Torrance Art Museum, and I know it seems kind of like, oh, it's just like a window at a mall, but offering these opportunities is just so important for artists. So not only it gives visibility for artists, but it also explores the opportunities in terms of like presenting your work and also the production of the work. So, and I just wanted to highlight these just yeah, like, just this engagement, this public engagement, not only as an opportunity for an artist, but also for like the public in general, right?
Absolutely.
Uh,
Like the idea of not having to go to a museum to see art.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I started off like over 10 years ago in these like 5x5 really small printmaking mediums, and then the work that I'm doing now in large scale. And without these opportunities, we will not have, like I said, not only benefits the artist, but also like the public in general and educating them and what is out there. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity.
Of
And
course. Yeah. It was a great, one of the former curators, Hope, I think you worked with Hope Escura. And so, yeah, she was integral really in establishing this program, this collaboration with Debbie Hayes over at Discover Torrance. She's wonderful, and she's really. I think that those kinds of collaborations. We're also doing one over at the Madrona Marsh right now, and I think those kinds of collaborations within the actual city of Torrance make a big difference for the citizens in the community, but also, as you say, you know, um, being at the mall. I mean, that kind of attracts people from all over. And like you say, you never really know who's going to stop and take a look, right? Stand right in front of that window and look at your intricately made Plarn creations.
like I said, it's also encouraging artists in the community who might not think they're like, I only see myself in the gallery or in the museum, but then like there's these opportunities in public art that people, maybe it's a missed opportunity. And then having a programming like this, that may seem like, oh, it's in a mall, but no, it's not, like there's
Right, right.
your audience to that. Like it's this kind of serendipitous like moment you're walking by, like, oh, what is this? So I just want, like I said, I'm just like, I have a full gratitude and appreciation for programming like this because not only you're providing visibility for artists, but also like pushing the artists from their like comfortable space, right? In terms of presenting the work and also producing a work that they might not think that they will be able to do, but then you're presented with this opportunity. You're like, I'm gonna go big. I'm not gonna
Exactly, exactly. Well, I'm so excited to look at the
yeah.
work that you're going to show us today. It's exciting. Oh, wow.
With
Okay.
this journey, and like I said, it started off with that the opportunity at the airport, but at the same time I was given this opportunity with the city of Solana Beach, which is their coaster station. They're like, hey, we have all this fencing, and the same thing. It's the opportunity for artists to dream big. And then I'm like, well, wouldn't it be funny if we create it in this like natural space to have unnatural products? That I always start off with like the idea of like, what if in
Hmm.
this space and you have all these like natural environment, and then growing out of this is an unnatural product. And also, you know, I actually was thinking, because I was deconstructing all these, counterfeit bags. And I said, well, since I'm buying them all on Craigslist, I don't know if
Yes,
going
yes.
back to the post, like I was buying them on Craigslist, like swap meets, thrift stores. And then I'm like, wait, I think I might be part of like this, um,
Mhm.
this, the
Yes.
cycle of like consumer. So I said, how else can I talk about the consumer without like supporting like these counterfeit products, and why I turned to plastic. I'm like, what is a symbol of consumerism? And going beyond that, like not just counterfeit goods, but also like what is like a universal symbol of consumerism, which is the plastic bag. And that's what
Sure.
brought me to this whole thing. So, initially I wasn't talking about like environmental, like how is this affecting us as as part of like environment. I was just thinking about like the consumer, and then started thinking about like the idea of like the post-consumer goods, right? Like what is the product that we have after we have this consumption, right?
Sure.
So
There's
this is
always that leftover, like you said in the in the bio, there's always that rubbish component, right? So in
yes.
order to get to the X, I have to have there's something left over afterward that unfortunately we either recycle, I'm air quoting, or throw away.
Yeah. So this was for the city of Solana Beach. And then also during that time, I was part of a residency at the Riverside Art Museum. And then I said, and also like starting to think about like this, part me of, because I'm a teacher, like how do I get more involvement and engagement in the piece? So I was doing all these like more public engagement with my work. So this is, like I said, a pergola for the Riverside Art Museum, which is actually in their permanent collection.
Oh, wow.
Um, and then also I did another opportunity, was from the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach. And this was like years
Oh,
ago. And they would invite artists, and then it was like a 1 day event, and then have these installations in the aquarium. And like I said, that and I wanted to kind of like advocate like these, I know these temporary exhibits, and also these, you know, just these temporary exhibits in like maybe unusual spaces, or these, you know um yeah, like these works that the spaces that you might not think you would
sure.
be.
They're really unconventional, right? Like you don't ever expect to go into the aquarium and see art.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm encouraging these spaces because it just allows artists to go beyond like their comfort zone. So
And
um
also, notably in that last slide, I think too, plastics are such a big issue for oceans. And so for you to be able to say, there's other things that we can do with our plastic besides having it end up in the ocean, it's a very powerful statement.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like I said, then people started reading into the context in ways that I didn't expect, and then which brought me to more an environmental rather than, like I said, maybe like a socio, like historical messaging, right? So I'm like, oh,
Ah,
wait, now it's going
oh,
more like so,
okay. I see. I see. So basically the response to your work led you to a more environmental path.
yes, yes. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
initially it was more like a social, political, maybe historical, like underlying messaging, but now it became more environmental, which, you know, I think any way I can get the public to engage with the work, I think that's a success. So you don't
Yes.
need like
Yes.
these conversations um, one may have, right? And then also I did a work with Westfield Horton Plaza, which is really funny because there was a sign. I took my daughter, and she was little at that time. We went to the mall,
Mhm.
and downtown San Diego, and then I saw a sign. We were there actually to go to a concert, and it was like yeah, like a little kid concert. And there was a sign that says, "Do you want this space? Email this number, like email
Oh,
this." Um,
wow. Okay. How serendipitous is that?
yeah,
Wow.
it's like, email this person if you have an idea. So I emailed them, and then they like, Westfield Horton Plaza actually emailed me back, and I pitched a project, and I said, basically, it's we have a receptacle here, and whatever the public actually donates, and I will convert it to Plarn, and then it'll help grow this project. And that's why the
Wow,
it's called Grow.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah. So, and the funny thing was, they were like, well, we don't have a budget for this piece, but it's, it's visibility for artists, So I said, okay, fine. I'm just starting off like, with these ideas during that time. But fast forward a couple months after that, they're like, hey, do you want a studio space in one of our,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah,
That's so wonderful. That's
yeah.
really, but by having the like by having the raw material there, and then the beautiful, it's just so intricate and beautiful. And it reminds me of like when I was little in my grandmother's house, I mean, it's very, it evokes a certain feeling when you look at it. But to show that it's come from that raw material, I think helps people understand that, yes, this beautiful artwork came from this, but not everybody's doing this with their plastic bags. Just Cat.
Yeah, and then I mean, this is actually at the beginning of the piece. People started like just donating more, to the point that, the mall they were calling me multiple times a week. They're like, "Hey, it's full again. I think we should have made a
Oh,
big
wow. Oh
a
my goodness.
receptacle." So yeah, so this, and the like I said, you never know these opportunities, right? Yeah.
Right.
So and which you know really made it clear for me in terms of, in the past, within like a short period of time, and creating these public art pieces, was the idea of the content. When you're installing the work, the context, like there is these, social, cultural, political, historical, environmental implications, and also the concept, like how is it universal for everyone, this visual language that you're sharing out in the public, right? It needs to have a universal language, right?
Sure.
Regardless of your background, your experience in art, your just your general, like, do you even like art? You know what I mean? Like, how do you get
Sure.
people to get drawn in the work itself? So these are just kind of like what I learned from um that. So, and then basically
Oh my.
there was a bigger opportunity, and this was through the National Endowment for the Arts, and the city of Pasadena was involved with this. And basically they're like, well, City of Pasadena, we have this funding, and like, dream big once again. Right? So
Mhm.
like,
Wow.
what? And at that time I was living in Pasadena. Like, what if, and by the way, I was like a block away from where the Rose Parade path is. Um,
Yes.
and understanding how big of a deal, they close everything, you know what I mean, during that time for the tournament of Rose
Yes. Yeah, it's
Parade.
monumental.
Yes. So, and having that experience, and I said, what if, and seeing all these, the Rose Parade, what if, like, these natural, once again, these natural products, what if they were like, we use something that's unnatural, right? Tournament of Roses Parade, they usually use like flowers and
Right.
plants.
All really organic. Right. Right.
Yeah, so in my head, it's like, what if we don't? So, so that's how I always start. Like, what? So, and I proposed this, and actually, they accepted. I was like really surprised. I'm like, oh, you guys accepted my proposal. So I created this piece. It's, I believe, 10 by 10, like the trailer. And I worked with the school district, and
Oh,
actually I wasn't working in Pasadena Unified at that point. I moved to San Diego, and thankfully, all my old colleagues, they were happy to have me back and introduce
sure.
this project to the students. And actually, the students helped create the plastic yarn, or plarn, and that they were just really involved, with the process. And it wasn't on the actual parade route, but it was placed with, they have a display after the parade. It
Oh,
was
yes, right. Yes, right, right, right.
So it was placed after, with the parade floats, but after the actual parade.
Sure.
So it was just like I said, once again, it was just great visibility. How do you engage the public? It's just like, oh, look at this.
Yeah, and the fact that the fact that students were able to contribute, I think is fascinating. That's wonderful.
One funny thing was, everybody's like, we're going to learn how to crochet. And
Oh,
there's all this excitement about crochet. And I'm like, it's so hard to teach people crochet.
yes, it is not easy at all. Okay. Any of those needle required knitting or crochet or macrame, whatever. It's not easy, I don't think.
Yeah. But
It's not
there's
intuitive.
great interest. Like kids, I mean, the students always, they see it like in social media, and they're just like, oh, are we going to do that? I'm like, well, that's going to require more time.
Right. Right.
So they were more involved with the process of actually converting it to like usable material rather than like, they actually did the wreaths that you see there, but I do have some students who helped. I did have some students who helped with actually crocheting. So there
Oh,
were always one or two in the group.
good.
When
Did they already know how to do it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Like
good.
their parents, grandparents, or family
Yes.
members help them,
Yeah.
So and like I said, that this just kind of this whole slew of like projects I was doing during this time. So I worked with the city of Atlanta. And then also looking familiar now,
Mhm, mhm.
but this is actually the Los Angeles County Fair at the Millard Sheets Art Center during that time. So, and like I said, really experimenting with the material that I have, and then seeing them in like in different spaces. And here, this is for the city from the city of Vista. And once again, they'll do this like annual call, and inviting artists. Um, like how do you envision your work? And this one actually, it rotates. It's almost like a weather vane. So the kites
Oh,
rotate with
okay.
it.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Wow.
so same thing, it's made out of plastic bags, which brought me to all this like um just working with different cities, same material, like made like a little more playful, like you see this plastic in the wind, you see a plastic bag floating in the wind, and then I said, oh well, what if they were like actually kites, like
Right.
it's kind of
Right.
like frozen in space. So yeah, so the city of Amelia Island in Florida, O'Fallon in Missouri and Palm Desert, and understanding like, so that's what I learned from here too, just understanding the environment. And these were outdoor, right? Like, how do you, like, from Amelia Island in Florida, where you have like these hurricanes, and then O'Fallon in Missouri, where it actually snows, and then Palm
Right.
Desert,
The
like,
climate is so different. The climate
yeah.
is so different, but the plastic issue persists there as well.
Yeah, and how it actually affects it also, which is
Mhm.
really interesting to me. Like I have one actually right now in Oregon, and it's done really well considering it's been there for 2 years. Like, so another one of the kite series. So and you know and then during this time I was doing all these artists in residence as well. And the Lower East Side Ecology Center, which is in Brooklyn, New York, they would offer, at that time, they would offer artists to come in and, work in the warehouse, their warehouse. And when they invited me, it was actually for plastic. They had like all this plastic bag. But then when I walked in, I mean, this is a huge warehouse, and they had these huge boxes of like all this like e-waste.
E-waste, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're
It's
like,
so
hey, we
funny
have.
when you see ecology, it's like this image is the antithesis of ecology, but I guess in a way, they must have had like an e-waste collection day where they safely were able to find, give people a drop-off point to drop off their e-waste as opposed to just improperly getting rid of it.
Yes, I mean, this is nonstop. People were dropping them off.
Oh, wow.
Feels like, so I came in there for their plastic, but just in awe of how much electronic waste there are,
Yes.
there. They were
When you
like,
think about it. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about how quickly, just think about in your own lifetime, how many computers you've owned, how many phones you've owned. And that's not even, like that's just our own personal devices. Uh, it's just a huge amount. And the fact that we turn it over so relatively quickly, it's not like we have a TV that we've had for 35 years. As the technology changes nowadays, many people tend to replace, and we do so without really considering what we're supposed to be doing with our old.
Yes, definitely. I mean, so there's parts of the electronic device that they can recycle, but there's parts that they cannot. And the one on the left, as you see, it's the screens, they cannot. So they'll take it apart, recycle the
Oh,
parts that they can, and there's just these huge boxes of like screens, and on top of that you have VHS tapes and also cassette tapes, and like,
yeah.
so and they are actually on the right that you see here, they have this vintage, it's almost like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
historical, like space where they.
Yeah. It's like the first Mac, I think. Yeah. Pretty
Yeah, that,
awesome, actually.
and you can rent those out. So those ones,
Really?
yeah. So for if you're filming, it needs to be like, a period piece, and you can so they would rent these pieces out just in terms of like authenticity, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
That's like
so
the first Mac I learned on. Okay. Wow.
So, and which brought me, because of that, didn't work with plastic when I was there in Brooklyn. And I started just playing around with all the materials that they have, and with the iPhones and the iPads, and, and it was just a really great opportunity to be, surrounding that and like getting excited. Like, oh my gosh, look at all this material, right?
That's
So,
amazing.
and it just brought me to a whole different part of my practice, and I just wanted to just touch on that really quickly, right? So and you will see same material, I mean, I'm sorry, same process, right, using these very traditional methods. And a lot of times I don't work just strictly in one traditional method. It's kind of like this, a mixture, a conglomerate of like different methods,
Mhm.
very traditional handicraft methods, but then, like, um, yeah, like, but same process, different material. I feel like that's kind of the work that I was doing. So,
Oh, so
um,
actual land art pieces in Redmond, that's outside.
oh, that one's outside. Yes. So they would have an event in Redmond. It's like a light festival, and they would have that's actually in Redmond. That one's part of their permanent collection. So that one,
Oh,
like,
wow.
so you could
Yeah,
actually see
because
all the
Redmond is
slides.
Redmond where gosh, what's there? Dell or IBM or something
It's the
big?
headquarters for Microsoft.
Microsoft. Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes. So yeah, that's part of their permanent collection. They were so every time, I would like to say December, January, they would have that light festival. They would have they would have this piece up, and you can actually see all the their art history slides that my alma mater, College of the Desert, they donated their collection, their art history a slide collection to me. And so you would see that all, if you look really
Wow.
closely.
That's
So yeah.
so
So
good.
yeah. But and then also another part of my practice is this, like I said, as an educator. It's like, how do you bring people together, more community collaborative, and also having visibility. So not only working together to create the piece, but also having visibility for the students, right? So they can visit these public areas and say, I did that and I did
Yes,
that, right?
that's
Like,
a wonderful feeling of ownership.
yes, and then having their pieces like in a public space that's easily accessible for like parents and so forth. So, and the one on the right that you see, that's actually right now, it's a work in progress, and it's part of like the World Design Capital, which is happening right now in San Diego, where I have gone to several schools, not only in San Diego, but in the Tijuana side, and we're making a giant friendship bracelet.
Oh,
So, yeah.
how cool.
So,
I have a
um,
friend who lives in San Diego. I'm texting her. I will text her afterward and say, go to Friendship Park.
oh, not yet. So that's like, that's,
It's
we're,
coming.
yes, it's coming. So, but then, just kind of just my social media, but coming kind of back circle to plastic, which is the window at the Amo Mall, right, at the for the Torrance Art Museum. It's just like I said, I feel like for me, the this space, this public space, in terms of like also a mall that, like I said, this these encounters that you may have that may not, like I said, you're not deliberate, right? It's not a deliberate experience. You're like, I'm going to look at art, right?
Right,
You're
right.
there for your own, your own interests, and then encountering these spaces that's not, maybe not really intended, right, for looking at art, but having these opportunities not only for the public, for the artists. I think that that's just, I find joy with that. So I just wanted
Absolutely,
to
absolutely. And we're noticing the beautiful piece behind you. Would you, unless it's proprietary, would you share the process of making plarn?
Well, basically, so this one, the one behind me, is actually the VHS tapes and the e-waste piece. So
Oh, wow. Okay, that's the tape.
this one's a tape, yes, the VHS
Okay.
tape and the cassette tapes. So the plarn, basically, you take the grocery bag, flatten it. I usually fold it in half or a quarter, and then I cut the top and the bottom of it, like the bottom seal and the handle, and then you cut them in strips, right? And then you just loop them together. So
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, it's and then you just use it. So the thicker it is, the harder to work with. Maybe you need a bigger hook, a crochet hook, the thinner it is. Depending also on like the plastic bag, that you have. It's easier to use the one, what do you call it? The single use plastic.
Okay.
So the thicker ones that I've been using, that actually almost like I'm cutting them and sealing them together, almost like a quilt. So I've been experimenting with that one. The ones that you can, purchase
Yes.
nowadays.
Well, and about how long would it take you to create the piece behind you?
The piece behind me, well, I am a fast crocheter. So
Okay.
I can't remember honestly how long it took me. I would say maybe a month or so.
Okay. Okay.
So, but depending, like I said, depending on like the piece, the size of the piece and the complexity, and just, so, but I mean, I find these meditative. So like, it's not like, it's something that I really enjoy creating. So
Yeah, they really do have kind of like that mandala quality to them, that repetition. They're very Alma Thomasy for me. I like the shape. So one last question for those people who are watching, who are either artists themselves, who are doing public art, which again is very different than, well, I mean, it's the same process, but I think that it's very different to be able to put yourself out there to display your art publicly as opposed to having it curatorially selected for a gallery or a museum. Or for students out there who are, your career as an educator, how would you encourage them to, your work is all over the country and in many, many states. And did you say you had pieces internationally as well?
I did. That was temporary though.
Okay, okay. And so how would you encourage them to begin to pursue some of these projects that are, how do you find out about what cities and towns and communities would like for public art?
I would say there is, of course, like in these opportunities, you see them like the window, but also like there's call for entry, which is cafe online. They'll do
Okay,
calls, and I say, like just like what I did, just start off small. So, and then small in terms of like temporary spaces, and then just kind of like once you do one, it feels like all of a sudden everyone's like you all of a sudden you see all these other opportunities.
right,
So,
right.
but
Well, thank you. That's wonderful. I really appreciate you coming on and telling everyone a little bit more about the work. Um, and it's going to be up so all through the rest of the month of April, and then all through May and all through June. So it will be up through the end of June for you to check out.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for having
Fantastic.
me. And just, like I said, this allows me to also kind of like look at my journey and like, the trajectory of like what I want in terms of practice. So thank you.